Welcome, everyone, and delighted to have you join us for our second day of the Renegade Music Series for William Mary. And we're joined today with two terrific leaders in the music industry. One is faculty member, Professor Richard Marcus at William Mary's Department of Music. He is the director of the Wind Ensemble as well as the Chamber Winds. Teaches conducting theory, as well as one course we're very interested in the conversation is the business of music, and he's been leading this new course, and he'll tell you more about that shortly. Also, we have alumnus class of '96, I believe, Russell Taylor, who's executive producer of a production company, Indigo Blue, and he'll tell you more. He's also taught at various universities and has a master's from NYU, but his undergrad is in government and English at William Mary, and former Stairwells member, as well as just loves the William Mary community as a whole. We were having a good conversation just before today. And unfortunately, I regret that Chris Varvaro, class of 21, recent graduate, unfortunately had a work commitment that got pulled into very last minute. So he truly regrets his lack of being able to join us today. However, he has agreed to share. I'll share everyone his email later, and please keep in touch with him. He wants to be a part of this great William Mary Music Network and support one another's music industry interests. So, well, with that, Michael Steelman, I do our career and professional programs for William Mary with alumni. And my hope today, I wear two hats. I am a fellow musician by study. I did my undergrad degree in classical voice performance from Michigan, and love music and have made it a part of my life, and have been gifted from my parents exposing me to great music in early on age and just throughout my life. And so I appreciate this, but I took a career move that was different. And we were joking because Russell studied English and government. I studied music, and he's now doing more music, and I'm doing career development. So the joy of a liberal arts education of William Mary, Professor Marcus, is that you get this incredible foundation to do whatever you want in your life. And I think music, as I was reflecting earlier, is one of those industries that has really defined politics, defined social justice issues, defined just comforting people and trauma and in joy. And I think it's seen much greater than entertainment in my mindset. And I'm curious from, I'll start with you on this one. How is academia, in your mind, adjusting in the interest of music from both the students studying it in departments to this great, array of music organizations and people coming to college these days having played an instrument of some sort probably in their high school?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Michael. And thanks for putting this event together, and happy to be here today and discuss these issues. So, like you, my background is in traditional music. My undergraduate degree was in music education and graduate degrees in conducting. Right before I came to William and Mary, I did a one-year assignment at university in South Carolina, a satellite college from the University of South Carolina. And the degree that they offered was a Bachelor of Arts degree in commercial music. And I was hired to teach traditional music theory. But while I was there, I was also asked to teach music business and entrepreneurship. And, frankly, I really did not have a whole lot of experience doing that. But I welcomed the opportunity. And the students and I kind of helped each other to get through it. And they had a lot more experience than I did. But I really learned a lot. And when I came to William and Mary, they asked me what courses I would like to teach. And I thought that this might be a course to introduce to the curriculum. Like most other music schools, we have the traditional curriculum, but we've been expanding more in different areas. So we had a professor who was teaching live music or live sound and computer music. Unfortunately, that professor, he left us this fall, but we are in the middle of advertising to find a person to replace that position. And we're looking for someone who is interested in specifically audio engineering, because as most people know, I hope you know, that we are getting ready to open a new music building. It's scheduled to open in the spring of 2023, I believe.
Wow.
And we're going to have a performance hall, a dedicated performance hall and recital hall. And the original plans for the building did not include a recording studio. However, one of our professors who was hired recently felt that that was a serious error in planning. So we were able to add a recording studio before the plans were finalized. So we're really excited about that. And we will have opportunities to record all of our groups, but we will have opportunities for students to record their own projects as well. So my little class is just an introduction to music business. We talk about performing rights organizations. We talk about how to protect your intellectual property. We talk about contracts. You know, and I think in the past, musicians have really focused on developing their performance skills and not really paid a whole lot of attention to the business side of it. But now that more opportunities are open to individuals, then this becomes more and more relevant and important. So yeah, and I'm going to be teaching that class again in the spring. I think maybe that's the third or fourth time. So it's a relatively popular class. We have between 25 and 35 students every time we offer it, taking the class. Some are majors, some are non-majors. And then we've had several who have gone on to careers in the music business. So this is something new for us, but it's a growing trend, not only here, but in music schools all across the country, and even in conservatories. They're offering those courses as well.
That's wonderful. And I really appreciate that shift in mindset of the entrepreneurial thinking, that, because I mean, we at William & Mary have this great entrepreneurial thinking center and program. And so this is neat how it connects back into the music department partnership. So I think there's an opportunity there with Graham Henshaw and what he's doing and how to utilize this new building and all the great things coming from that with that program as well. So I see synergy across campus happening in the near future, and certainly not least in this matter, alumni, people like Russell and Chris or others out there that want to get more involved. Please do reach out to Professor Marcus and the music department. I'm sure they would love to hear from alumni and get you engaged in the classroom or virtually through interaction with these students that are the rising stars of the music industry. So to alumnus Richard Taylor, thank you. So Russell Taylor, sorry, Richard, apologize. Russell, apologize for that. What have you experienced in this past 18, 19 months of COVID that we have shifted? A lot of industries have shifted and changed course. How has the music industry shifted in your mindset? What have you personally dealt with? But what opportunities too have come out of it in some ways that you've been able to adjust or learn from, and sort of what others in your field are seeing or doing that you could reflect on in a little bit?
Well, let's see. I think I can speak from personal experience and then what I believe to be, a universal shared experience. So personally, touring is our lifeline. It's my lifeline. And when I'm able to tour, that's when I make the bulk of my money, touring and sync licensing. So with COVID, we were immediately shut down. But then there was also, though I was able to record and I had a cursory knowledge at the time when in March of 2020, like pre-production work at home, I wasn't able to record in the full scale that, because typically you go to a recording studio and you have all the musicians come in, and we were not allowed to do that either. I was actually in Los Angeles and recording when COVID quarantine started to come down the pike. So touring was impossible. And all of my tours, I had an East Coast tour and I had a second European tour pending, all canceled until further notice. So lifeline gone. So it's the next thing you have to do. You have to learn to improvise. So I started to polish my skills at home in recording, and it was a curse-filled, frustrating moment. But I got through it, and now I can record anything at home in my home studio. And as far as touring, my first challenge was I did a performance for iHeartRadio, and they wanted a 3-song performance, and the staging of it was unreal, and the nerves, because you can cut out at any time. And this was fairly new in the quarantine too. It was maybe around May or June, and it was the most unnerving thing I have ever tried. But then you learn, like, you have to pre-tape, and then you can go back and fix. So it was a huge learning curve. But I will say, I've always, because I'm an independent artist and I promote the idea of entrepreneurship and owning your music, your intellectual property, and moving and so forth. I believe that you have to learn how to do everything. And I was kind of weak in those areas comparatively, and now I know how to do them. And I think that COVID, particularly for people in my line of business, COVID forced us to learn more and expand our spectrum, our knowledge base, to be better artists and better creators and better business people. Yeah.
That's true. No, I think that's true of a lot of industries, but in particular musicians,
Yeah.
because of the fact that the touring, everything was dependent on live performance and this
Yeah.
experience with an audience of where we can't gather.
And that's and Michael, that is the big challenge for me and a lot of artists that are in my peer group, is that part of the performance is the audience, and sometimes that is taken for granted. And we learned very quickly how important the audience is, not just financial for people to buy tickets and fill seats, but it's the audience is the unspoken part of the experience. Like, audience gives to people on stage give to the audience.
The
and
energy.
That was a huge it was a huge handicap for this time.
I mean, that's that's the difference of a Zoom versus a in-person event. It's like you're speaking to a computer screen is not, we can't do it all the time, and we need that energy of the people. And I think that's a very well stated point. One of the things too that you mentioned in some of the conversations getting to know you before today, you talked a lot about how you took initiative to get into the music industry. And I'd be curious, like, what advice you might have for Dr. Marcus's students, but even alumni out there that are either trained musicians or self-taught, or want to get in the music industry, because a lot of times people these days are also making career moves that changing industries, and music might be one of those that they've always had an interest in. And I'd be curious, like, as somebody that has navigated that as a government English major, how did you end up with such a career and path? What are some brief advice tips that you might give to people to explore that initiative?
I think in the arts in general, I think that particularly when you're coming from a liberal arts background and you're coming from a school like W&M Wrenegade, which is a tough school, and reward is when you do a paper and you spend a lot of time and you do your research, you get an A, hopefully, and when you study and you do all your work properly and you graduate with honors or so forth. And I think in the arts, the same type of reward does not exist. And it's difficult to transition from immediate reward, where you study and your effort is reflected, with a grade or success in that regard. You have to learn how to, I think this is one of the fundamental things that artists and creators have to learn if they decide to have a career, is that you have to learn how to set personal goals for yourself and build in your own reward and your own sense of quality control and assurance and so forth. Otherwise, you will set yourself up for a very miserable career. That was one of the biggest challenges. And then it's also a little bit of a mind trick too, because if people do not like, if a lot of people don't like what I create, then how can I make a business from it? So it's a bit of a tightrope, but if you build the foundation with first understanding that, building your own reward, then you're able to move forward. So that's advice number one. When it comes to the business, as an entrepreneur, as an independent artist, I made it my business. In the beginning, it was because I just didn't have the money to pay a bunch of contractors to work with me in the beginning. But now I can do quality control for all the contractors that I hire, for video, for graphic design, for stagecraft. For I know a relatively good amount, an operating amount of information about all the contractors that I would hire, and it makes me a better businessman. And because I'm better at the business side, I'm also much stronger as a performer, especially when I'm writing all the checks.
Well, no, I mean, these are great tips, and I think relevant to the skills discussion we've been having as far as how you used the past 2 years to really get a few extra tricks under your belt.
Yeah,
And I think,
exactly.
to go back to Dr. Marcus in the music department, how have you all been dealing with more last year? I mean, certainly William Mary was fortunate to be able to get back into campus setting pretty quickly compared to some other institutions. But still, we're still restrictive in a lot of the environments for which the settings for which studies are occurring, and the campus is not what it was 3 years ago as far as the interactions in the music stages and so forth. But what did you find from the experience in the pandemic? Some of the skills that students were focusing on, things that came out of it in a positive light. If there are things that you observed from your the ambitious William Mary talented students, what did they do that amazed you and your peers and faculty around the music industries? What creative things did they kind of learn and do?
Well, certainly our reliance on technology increased exponentially during the crisis, and we discovered that a lot of our students had knowledge in this area that we may not have known before. So, a lot of them stepped up and made some of these groups that are outside of the department, like the a cappella choirs, they were able to develop their own recordings. And within the music department, in the spring of 2020, that's when everything shut down. And I'm the director of band, so we were planning to have our final concert in April, I believe. And of course, we were not able to do that. Everybody was sent home. And of course, the students did not have their instruments. A lot of the students didn't have their instruments with them. And one of the pieces we were going to perform was based on a series of folk songs. And we were actually going to sing one of those folk songs at our concert and then play it. So not everyone had their instruments at home, but they could sing their part. We had already gone over that. So everybody made their own individual recording. And then we had a company that we work with put all that together. And then we ended up with this choral production, I was really proud of that. And we, in the fall of 20, I was on leave. That was a regular leave for me. So our group did not meet. We did have a virtual homecoming performance, and I invited alumni and anybody who had participated in the past in the band. We did the same thing. We recorded the alma mater, the fight song, and they recorded their part individually. We put all that together. And then this semester, we're meeting back in person. And for our concerts, we've been live streaming them. And that's really been great. So now that we're back under more normal circumstances, we have continued the live streaming because that really has expanded our audience. And also for me personally, just being able to experience some performances on Zoom that I normally would not have been able to do. I've seen several concerts in Vienna and in England, and because of this technology, it makes it easy to participate. And there was some innovation in some of those recordings. So I have seen 2 concerts in Vienna. The first one, you could tell that the actual performance of the music was pre-recorded. The introductory remarks were live, but then I saw another one where it was all live, and whatever they had done was really wonderful. It was there were no technical difficulties, and it was almost as if you were in the room itself. So it was wonderful. Yeah.
Terrific. And I'm that idea, the visualization of the students that were instrumentalists becoming singers, well, always being great, talented musicians, but to put them into they didn't have their instruments that they usually play, but they went and put together that.
Well, yeah, improvisation is always part of it. So.
That is a great example of how to pivot and be resilient in a time, but still the joy and love of music was what brought them back together and helped. I'm sure those students enjoyed it equally, the opportunity to be able to perform together in that
Yes.
medium, even if it meant virtual, better than nothing.
Yes.
And I think kind of I'll conclude with this question to both of you, and you can kind of reflect about it. It's sort of, what does the future lie, as far as you've hinted on some skills that have been acquired for people, professionals in the music industry, as well as the students learning about how to navigate and be entrepreneurs. I think is a skill in itself as entrepreneurs. The resilience piece of the past 2 years applies to anybody in an entrepreneurial setting, to be able to navigate turns and things that aren't expected. And I think your interest in becoming better in certain areas and where are the gaps. But what is the industry showing as far as opportunities in the future? What are you seeing now that things are somewhat getting back to some more live music certainly is happening, venues across the country, and some of the things. What are you seeing? I'll start maybe with Russell. What do you want to start this one out?
Sure. So I see two trends, to keep it brief. I see a lot more, but two particularly pop into mind. I think number one, when you have artists, like huge mainstream artists during the time of COVID, recognize that there have to be other ways to make money since you can't tour. And I see a lot of more lucrative and highly visible partnerships with brand partnerships and consumers. So you have like one of the reggaeton guys, I think is Little Bunny, did a partnership with McDonald's or Burger King, and Megan Thee Stallion a rapper just did a partnership with Popeyes. And I think that COVID has forced consumer brands. We were already on that track, but this forced consumer brands to make more deliberate partnerships, and artists as well, for money making opportunities. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think that live streaming and the such Zoom performances and things like that, I think as a component, maybe for archival purposes, or just as we experience YouTube, if we can go and watch a show from the 80s that someone has uploaded on YouTube, I think that there will always be a place for it. But I went to a live show, sold out last night, and it was sold out. And I found that I think it was about a 3,000 person room. And I find that people are even more open and more needy, craving the connection. So I suspect that we are going to get back to that place that we were before. But I think that everybody involved in this performance ecosystem is more grateful for the others in the ecosystem. And I think we're on our way back to an even better performance experience, and even better like ticket sales and people coming out. So that's what I think.
I love that. I hope that continues to be true. It's terrific to hear. And I did go to an outdoor performance for the first time over this, I think it was in August, to Wolf Trap here in Virginia. And it fueled a lot of the missing energy that I was needing. And so I think it was therapeutic, I would say, and quite needed. So last few words, Professor Marcus, your opportunity, and then we'll.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And then those same sentiments, we feel that in the department as well. We had a really strong group of people auditioning for our groups, and I think they just missed that connection. We recently had fall break, and I went to New York City, and it was my plan to go hear the Metropolitan Opera. However, it was completely sold out, no ticket available. So,
oh yeah,
I think people are craving this experience.
Professor Marcus, I'm sorry. Was it for the Fire Shut Up in My Bones at the Met? Was it for that show?
Yeah, that one was sold out, and also Puccini Turandot, both of them sold out. So, yeah.
I'm glad to hear, as an opera major in college, that's terrific future for a lot of my friends, that a lot of shows got canceled around the country and around the world. But I know Europe is doing well as well. And we didn't really touch on the international component of music, but the last part of this event is really networking. So for those of you that are joining us live, you'll be able to connect with one another through one-on-one chats. I think Richard, Professor Marcus, and Russell will be joining us for that as well to meet with some of you. So hopefully you get to connect with them as well. All you do is go out of this booth, and then you'll go into the booth that says network with fellow members and go from there. I just want to extend a sincere gratitude for both of you for taking the time out of your schedules to share some insights, some personal experiences of the music industry experts that you are, and also what's happening on campus is great to hear for those of us not on campus all the time and those joining and watching the recording. I'm sure we welcome your interest in getting more engaged. Watch some of these live streams if you can't make it to Williamsburg for the live performance, but hopefully in 2023 is the building launch.
Yes.
That you come back to see that, because I think that's going to be from the architectural renderings. I love it. It looks amazing, and I encourage you to learn more about getting involved in that effort as well. But thank you all for joining us, for being a part of the Wrenegade series, the first ever Wrenegade series this week, and support each other's musical talents and interests, and collaborate together. Is the last piece I would say, is be fellow musicians, supporting each other, but also creating new endeavors for our William & Mary community and beyond. So thank you both. Enjoy
My
the rest
pleasure.
of the hour,
Thank you.
and have a great rest of the afternoon. We'll talk.
Cool.
We'll be networking shortly.
Cool.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you both.